pause for a moment. Just halt the scroll before moving on. Because if you've landed here today, it wasn't by chance. It wasn't merely a coincidence or some stray occurrence in your feed. Something profound within you was searching for this message, and somehow it made its way back to you. So remain with me for a few moments. I want you to picture this special person right now. Let their face surface clearly in your mind. Then notice what stirs inside you when it does. That gentle tug in your heart. That blend of warmth, yearning, and something hard to put into words. That feeling is not doubt. It is your heart acknowledging something your mind is still working to grasp fully. Because this person isn't simply someone who wandered into your life by accident. On a deeper level, something within you already recognizes them. And I understand how draining it can feel to carry such a powerful love when everything surrounding it feels unclear. All those nights you lay awake holding these feelings privately, wondering if you were overanalyzing the signs, wondering if any of it actually matters. In the end, it does matter. You are not being naive. You are not being overly sensitive. You are not caring too much. You are someone standing at the center of something that will become deeply meaningful. And that is precisely why it feels so hard right now. If you feel profoundly bonded to someone even when it's painful, hit like so this message can reach more people. What makes these kinds of bonds so powerful is that they don't merely brush the surface of who we are. They reach straight into the parts of us we've spent years trying to control, conceal, or simply endure. Many people assume love should feel like relief, like finally reaching calm waters after years of struggling to stay afloat. But the connections that genuinely transform us often arrive more like a storm before bringing peace. They unsettle everything that has been buried beneath old coping patterns, emotional barriers, pride, fear, and survival instincts. At first, that disruption can feel more like collapsing than blossoming. When someone steps into your life and touches places no one else could reach, your defensive strategies suddenly fail. The person who has always given too much finally recognizes how exhausted they are from constantly proving their worth and placing everyone else's needs above their own. They begin questioning why they believed closeness had to be earned through endless patience, sacrifice, and emotional labor. That realization can wound deeply because it forces them to confront the painful belief that they were taught love isn't automatically theirs simply because they exist. Meanwhile, the other person faces an equally daunting truth. They survive by maintaining emotional distance. Closeness became linked to old pain, betrayal, disappointment, or loss, causing their nervous system to treat genuine intimacy as something threatening. They retreat not because the connection lacks significance, but because the intensity of the feelings becomes hard to manage. On the surface, it may look like a lopsided dynamic, where one person keeps moving forward while the other creates space and seems entirely overwhelmed. But underneath it is actually two wounded systems reacting differently to the same fear of rejection and not measuring up. The pursuer believes love will vanish without constant effort, making silence feel intolerable. But they must learn that losing themselves is too steep a cost for connection. Their worth isn't measured by how much pain they can withstand for another person. Comment Destined. If you believe this person is truly meant for you, even though everything feels entirely frozen right now, and the person who withdraws often carries the opposite wound, somewhere within them lies the belief that if someone gets too close, they will eventually lose themselves, let the other person down, or feel emotionally cornered. So, they instinctively create distance the moment things start feeling real. Yet that distance rarely brings calm. More often it brings guilt, confusion, loneliness, and a sharper awareness of how much they truly care. Because avoiding vulnerability may shield them from rejection for a while, but it also keeps them from receiving the love they secretly crave. And healing is rarely smooth at the start. Sometimes it looks like confusion. Sometimes it looks like inconsistency. Sometimes it shows up as fear, emotional overload, or long stretches of silence, while someone works to understand themselves better. Growth often looks chaotic before it begins to look wise. A caterpillar literally dissolves inside the cocoon before becoming something entirely new. Transformation has always demanded a kind of ending first. Not physical death, but the ending of old identities, old defenses, and old beliefs that can no longer fit inside a deeper kind of love. That is why these connections can feel almost unbearable at times. They expose contradictions within us. They show us how deeply we crave closeness, while also showing us how frightened we are of it. They force us to recognize the difference between attachment and genuine love. Attachment says, "Please don't leave because I need you to complete what's missing inside me." Real love eventually says, "I want to know you fully, while also learning how to stay whole within myself." And that shift changes everything. Share this video with someone who is caught in a confusing yet deeply meaningful connection. Perhaps there is a question that feels strange when spoken aloud. What do I truly need right now? Not what do they need. Not what could I do, say, or become that might shift things between us. Not what would make them come back, open their heart, or finally understand. What do you need? What would bring you comfort today? Which parts of your own life have been neglected because your attention stayed locked on something that always seemed just out of reach? Begin refilling those empty spaces again. Start saying yes to yourself, with even a fraction of the enthusiasm and energy you've been pouring into everyone else. The things you postponed because you were waiting for life to feel more settled first. Start doing some of those things now. The friendships that gradually faded because your emotional focus was elsewhere. Reach back out to those people. The parts of yourself that you set aside because you became so consumed by this situation, retrieve them again and bring them back into your life. None of this is about pretending the love isn't real. None of this is about forcing yourself to stop feeling what you feel or trying to manufacture emotions that aren't there. It is simply about allowing your life to expand back into its natural form, so you are no longer confined to a small space built around one person and one possible outcome. And here is what happens when you genuinely begin doing that. Something shifts in the way you carry yourself. It isn't a dramatic transformation that appears overnight. It's much quieter than that. Yet it is completely real. You stop feeling like an incomplete sentence waiting for someone else to finish it. You stop feeling as though you're stuck in a permanent waiting room, as if your life cannot fully proceed until this particular situation reaches a resolution. You begin feeling like a whole person, someone whose life has depth, color, meaning, and momentum regardless of what any single relationship is doing. And that feeling, that stability, that sense of standing firmly in your own life, rather than dangling in someone else's uncertainty, transforms your presence. The people around you notice it, even if they can't fully explain why. There is something special about a person who genuinely feels at home within themselves. It is magnetic in the truest sense of the word. It draws in rather than pursues, and the person you have been loving through all of this will notice it too, perhaps more than anyone else. They will sense the difference. This is not a strategy. I want to be very clear about that, because the last thing I want is for you to treat this as some technique for achieving a specific outcome. It is not. It is simply what happens when someone stops relating to another person from a place of lack and begins relating from a place of fullness. The entire dynamic starts to breathe differently. There becomes room for something authentic to happen that simply couldn't happen before. Now I want to speak about them for a moment, because there may be something you need permission to understand. They are not the villain in this story. I know there have likely been moments when the pain made it tempting to view them that way. Times when the silence, distance, or inconsistency made you want a simpler explanation where someone was clearly at fault. But they are not a cold-hearted person. They are not someone who simply doesn't care. What you have been interpreting as distance is often something far more layered. It is a person who somewhere along their journey, usually long before they ever met you, learned to view love as something dangerous, something costly, something that demands more than they feel capable of giving, something that exposes them to a level of pain they would rather avoid. They did not choose this consciously. Almost nobody does. These beliefs are shaped by experiences that leave marks long before we understand what is happening. So what appears to be them pulling away is often them trying to manage a fear that has lived inside them for years. Comment healing if these words are touching something deep inside your heart right now. They think about you during the quiet moments between distractions, when life slows down enough that they can no longer avoid what's happening within them. You are there. They feel the absence of your energy even during the times when they are the ones who created that distance. There is a tension inside them, connected to you, that doesn't disappear, simply because there is no contact, because what they feel isn't really about physical closeness. It is connected to something much deeper that they haven't fully worked through yet. And that unfinished work is not yours to complete for them. You cannot do it for them. No matter how much you care, no matter how clearly you think you can see what they need, no matter how willing you are to offer your love as a bridge through their struggles, that journey belongs to them. What you can do, the truly powerful choice available to you, is refuse to let their fear define your worth. Refuse to absorb their unresolved pain as proof that something is missing in you. Hold yourself with genuine dignity and steady self-respect, so that if they eventually move through what has been holding them back, the version of you they meet is your fullest self. Not weakened by waiting, not emptied by longing, not desperate for validation that should have been coming from within all along, but standing fully in your own light, grounded, complete, strong, ready. Close your eyes for a moment and imagine a morning that may be closer than you realize. You wake up and the first thing you notice is that the weight is gone. That familiar heaviness resting in your chest, the one that has been there so long you almost forgot it existed, is no longer there. Not because your feelings vanished, not because you stopped caring about this person, not because you forced yourself into emotional detachment. It is gone because the love finally has somewhere to belong, because what remained unresolved has finally found resolution, because the thing that was always meant to unfold has unfolded. It is no longer sitting somewhere in the future waiting to become real. It is simply real. Imagine turning toward this person and truly seeing their face, seeing something there that you haven't seen before, or perhaps haven't seen in a very long time. Not hesitation, not conflict, not the look of someone who is physically present but emotionally holding back. Instead, you see peace, the calm and settled peace of someone who has made a complete choice and no longer questions it. Someone who is not managing their feelings or holding anything in reserve. Someone who is simply there with you fully. Imagine what it feels like to experience a love that does not appear in your mind at 2 a.m. as a source of stress. A love where you are not lying awake replaying every detail, searching for mistakes, wondering what you missed, or worrying about what comes next. A love where your nervous system finally gets permission to rest. A love where you are not constantly looking for signs, bracing for disappointment, or guarding yourself from uncertainty. A love where the question of whether you are enough no longer exists. Not because you finally convinced someone of your worth, but because you are with someone who never doubted it in the first place. A person who sees you completely, the layered and complicated parts of you, the strengths you celebrate, the areas where you are still growing, and chooses all of it, not despite it, because of it. That is not a fantasy created to comfort yourself. It is the natural destination of two people who chose to take their healing seriously. Two people who stopped arriving with old wounds and old fears, expecting another person to fix everything life damaged. Instead, they came together as individuals who had done enough work to truly be available for something genuine. That is what is being built right now within the uncertainty, the challenges, and the waiting of this season. Type me, if you have been waiting and working on yourself for this kind of love. Every day you choose self-care instead of sinking into worry. You place another stone into the foundation of lasting love. Do not allow the difficulty of this middle chapter to convince you that the ending isn't real. The middle is often the hardest part, the most uncertain part, the place where it is easiest to lose sight of where you are headed. But this stage is temporary. It has an ending. The love you are moving toward does not. You are not late. You are not broken. You are not someone destined to miss what others seem to find so easily. You are standing in the middle of a powerful transformation that will eventually touch every area of your life. Your story is not ending. Some of its most meaningful chapters are being written right now, through the quiet choices you make each day. Every time you choose healing instead of fear, every time you offer compassion to yourself instead of reserving it only for others, keep moving forward. Not because the path is easy, not because every step is clear, but because what is truly meant for you is already waiting. No amount of fear, distance, confusion, or poor timing can remove the love that is meant for your life. Look honestly at your life and decide that you deserve the same kindness, patience, and generosity that you so freely give to everyone else. Like this video, share the section that touched you most deeply, and subscribe for more messages about healing, meaningful connections, and the kind of love that arrives when two people are finally ready to receive.